Alabama injury report. Q Robinson and the impact that he's having on the Crimson Tide and Alabama. Can they match up with Wisconsin on offense? We're going to talk about that and more right here on Cover Crimson. So, guys, like and subscribe. Thanks for hanging out, and let's get this show started. He's Clint Lamb. I'm Mick Gillispie. Roll Tide, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. Make sure you're a subscriber to the channel and know that we come on every day at 1 o'clock for the most part, although we're probably coming on a little early because Monday's coaches press conference was so much fun. I think we're going to do that again. But Clint, I tell you what, it's been a week that I don't think Q Robinson's ever going to forget, and that's not because of football. Our hearts definitely go out to him, and right now, his entire family. Condolences.
Yeah, I mean, losing his dad, and just, I mean, we've all kind of been there. As far as, losing a loved one. I haven't lost my father, but, I've lost loved ones before, and, it can be such a distraction. And just the fact that, he took time to be with his family and be there with his family, but he did all the extra stuff needed to be prepared to play against USF on Saturday. And the fact that he made such an impact, I thought he played, really well, and that's so secondary to everything else. But it just it showed a lot about him and just the appreciation that you could tell Kalen DeBoer had for him, and I'm sure Kane Womack, as well. But we saw Kalen DeBoer kind of embrace him after the game on the field. It was just, it kind of reminds you that it's sometimes life's bigger than football, and we all got to keep that in mind. But just definitely condolences to him and his family, and also congratulations on a very, very strong performance.
Well, he's one of the guys you got to talk about because starting to turn some heads. And when you think about this Alabama football team, he's been, I don't want to say one of the biggest surprises, but he's been one of the best players that Alabama's had.
He's definitely been one of the most consistent. Yeah. And I thought this week he did, a lot better as far as, the Wolf responsibilities, all that edge stuff. I wouldn't say he's like the best run defender, but he can certainly hold up as a run defender. Obviously, he's one of the most naturally gifted pass rushers Alabama has. He's won in a variety of ways already. I mean, you've seen the dip and rip. You saw a swim move on Saturday where he turned a 45-degree angle and sacked the quarterback. He's done some really good things as far as, being a pass rusher. He's won over the tackle. He's won over the guard. But, I thought playing kind of that shallow off-ball linebacker, that sometimes you have to see the Wolf play, that type of situation in week one, he didn't look overly comfortable. I thought his run fits weren't exactly where they needed to be on a couple of plays that allowed Western Kentucky to have some success. On Saturday, I thought a lot of that was cleaned up. He did a very good job as far as the run defense. Not saying he's like perfect by any means, but I just saw vast improvement from just a week. He just looks like he's getting more comfortable kind of being, it's a different look when you're playing on the ball compared to playing off the ball. So love that he's shown the improvement that he has the fact that you saw, Quay Russaw continue to make, plays. I think they got a really good 1-2 punch there at Wolf.
Does that surprise you at all? Just kind of knowing what Alabama would have had there last year, where we are this year, kind of the contributions that Wolf position's making on the defense.
We knew it was going to be a really important position. It's one of those key versatile positions that you do a lot of different things with. We knew Alabama had a ton of talent in that room, so that was never really a question. It was just an unknown of who's it going to be. We knew Robinson was going to be involved. We knew Russaw was going to be involved. We thought Coot would be a little bit more involved. Now, he did play quite a bit more in the first half on Saturday, so I still think he is a guy in that room that they're going to rely on. But, I think right now the Robinson-Russaw with Russaw starting is kind of where they want to lean, for the time being. But, I will say it's a deep group. It's a talented group, and they're getting production out of that spot, whether it be run defense or, as far as being able to apply pressure on the quarterback. When you combine that with what LT Overton's bringing as a pass rusher, James Smith as an interior pass rusher, Tim Keenan, who I thought played a phenomenal game on Saturday. The fact that you can kind of push the pocket with him, he's generating some disruption in the backfield. This I understand that when you look at like the rushing yardage that USF had. I mean, they ran for over 200 yards. It's never a good thing. That's going to concern you as a fan. A lot of people's going to put that on the defensive line. It kind of goes beyond that. In fact, I wouldn't put a whole lot of it on the defensive line if I'm speaking candidly.
Really?
Yeah,
Where
I
would you
really
put
wouldn't.
that?
I think run fits. It's like okay, Damon Payne. That's one that I pointed out on Twitter where, he's not playing gap responsibility. He's worried about the quarterback keeping it on his own read, and the quarterback had already handed it off, and it was the gap that he was supposed to be responsible for. But he's going back to check to see if the quarterback still got it. That created the crease that the running back needed. It was the same thing with Coot. He was playing that off ball role. He was, flowing to the play side where everything was heading, and then he kind of second guessed himself and checked back at the quarterback, and that was all you needed for the running back to have a gap, for him to run through and get an explosive play. So it was things like that. Now you can say, with Damon Payne, that's on him. But I thought it was, a lot of the perimeter stuff. Quarterback was getting out on the perimeter a lot. He was breaking a lot of tackles out there, and that's where he ran for 108 yards. So it wasn't just him. They had success with other guys too, but over half the yardage came from just his production. So, and that was with him being sacked 3 times. So I think that was probably more of the culprit there.
Do you think Alabama's susceptible now to a running quarterback just from what you saw against South Florida? Or
I think everybody's susceptible.
Yeah.
That brings such an element. And this is the thing. Tennessee's going to do this. They did do it, with Hendon Hooker a couple of years ago. Joe Milton had a little bit of mobility, but they had to change some things offensively last year. But USF's the same way, where they're the point in spreading you out is it really makes your guys be able to play well in space. And I think Alabama got better at it over the course of the game, and they started playing better. They got a lot of players that are capable of playing in space. But it's only the second game of the season. The whole live tackling stuff, you're not doing that as much in practice. It typically takes defenses a couple weeks to kind of get their footing. But that's exactly what USF wants to do. They want to spread you out. They want to get their quarterback in space, and then he can make a guy miss, break a tackle, whatever. And you saw that quite a bit. But people struggle with that with Milroe. Alabama's defenses under Nick Saban, they always kind of struggle with dual threat quarterbacks. So it's nothing really new. But it's something where when you are playing more of an aggressive style of defense, you're maybe not going to have as much gap discipline, like the 2 gapping. You're kind of slow playing things that can kind of keep, as far as your tackle to tackle, maybe right off tackle stuff, a little bit more contained. But it's a different look, and I think Alabama's going to be fine with that because they got a lot of players that can get sideline to sideline. You just got to get more comfortable tackling and wrap guys up and bring them to the ground.
Guys, the show is presented by mybookie.ag. Use the promo code NEXTROUND to double your initial deposit. That's right. MyBookie will double your initial deposit when you use the promo code NEXTROUND. Kick off the football season with mybookie.ag and double your initial deposit using the promo code NEXTROUND. On top of that, I want to tell you this. We broke down the offensive line play with Mike Johnson, the All-American report for subscribers only. It will be out today, if not by the time you see this video, maybe if you're not watching it live. But he gives us a really good look at, what to think about this group, having gone back and watched it as a former Alabama offensive lineman. But be a subscriber, $1 right now, or if you do the annual subscription, you can be part of it for you get a free T-shirt for a year annual.
Mick, I don't want you to give anything away on it. I can't wait to see it myself. But I just wanted to ask, kind of vaguely, was there anything that Mike brought up as far as maybe the way that you were looking at the offensive line that maybe changed your mind on something, or maybe a couple things? Okay,
yeah, a couple things for sure. But I know from watching football with him, he's gonna, he's got his own perspective on watching film and football and offensive linemen and all that stuff. So I honestly was surprised, but I wasn't surprised. I will say this, guys. Thank you for being in the comments section and joining us today. We didn't know if Clint was going to be here. Had some internet issues, but as Stacy says, Clint was adamant with the internet provider that they better get him up online in time to do the show. So
They said
for that,
two.
give us a thumbs up, please.
They said two. The initially said two, and I was like, we're not doing two. I need before one. Chris and I were supposed to do our stock up, stock down. We're going to be doing that sometime this afternoon. And that'll probably be, we might wait and put that out tomorrow. It would typically be earlier today, but just, with the internet problem, I had to bump one thing back, but I was like, hey, we go live at 1, we're going live at 1. So y'all do whatever y'all need to do on y'all's end, and I'll be sitting at my computer ready to rock at 1. And, credit to them. They got it up with plenty of time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Juliet, good to see you. Roll Tide, everyone. Latoya, Roll Tide, thank you so much. All you guys. Thank you for being here. And Roll Tide to you guys as well. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point. Dustin wants to know about our friend Chris. Is he gonna? I haven't seen him this week, and I'm wondering if Chris is going to get that Peyton Thorne tattoo. Poor Peyton Thorne. We don't even know if he's going to have a job anymore. But week 2, I guess, is a struggle week. One thing that Mike did talk about was, he goes, man, it was the 08 season. We played Tulane and we struggled against him, and we beat him like 20-6. He goes, it was a struggle win. And that was part of a team that played for the SEC championship game. Or played in the SEC championship game, and was a really good team. So you have those weeks where you struggle. The one thing that you got to remember about Saturday is that Alabama put their foot on their neck and put them out of their misery in the blink of an eye with 28 points in that fourth quarter. So that's a part of the story as well. It's not just that you struggle.
You're 100% correct. And I will say, I think Elijah Pritchett played fine. I thought he played good, and I think he's going to be involved in that right tackle competition if Caden Proctor can get back on the field. But I will say, no one needs to be running with this idea of everything got fixed for Alabama offensively when he went out there, because I did get a chance to go back and watch the later part of, when Alabama really started picking things up offensively, and, he was doing fine, but it wasn't like he was the one that was just, mauling people. And, I just think everybody across the board was just playing better. I think something sparked them. They kind of started getting a little bit of momentum, and, it's amazing what happens when you execute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it. So a good win though. And, I guess the question that we have now is, just having spent time looking back at all the plays, what do you think about the offensive line play? And then, and kind of translating that with the total offense, not quite looking ahead to Wisconsin, but after 2 weeks, where are these guys?
The only real concern that I have is just a lack of consistency offensively. That's really where I'm kind of struggling. At no point this season have we really seen them in a groove, and they're rolling. And I don't know if it's like an adjustment period with, Kalen DeBoer. You lose your offensive coordinator. So Nick Sheridan, he's calling your plays. Kalen DeBoer says he's the one calling the plays. He can override stuff, but it's kind of Sheridan. He wants to give him the chance to get in that momentum, in that groove. I don't know how much that's affecting things, if it is at all. Maybe, Sheridan's a little rusty. He hadn't done it for, I think since 2019. I don't know if it's the fact that there's, different personnel, different pieces, the offensive line, the way it was built before, the way that they were taking it, or where they were taking it was, just big maulers in the run game. And they want guys to be as big as possible, but not at the expense of your athleticism. So, I think a guy like Jaden Roberts tries really hard. I think he's doing just fine in this scheme. Don't think he's a liability at all. Do I think that this offense is ideally suited for his skill set? Probably not. So, how much adjustment period is happening there? Different style of quarterback from Michael Penix to Jalen Milroe. How much is that? So there are a lot of justifiable reasons that could just get fixed as guys get more comfortable with each other. I mean, one thing we'll say about Tommy Rees is, over the course of last season, you saw him get more comfortable. He was new to Alabama, new to Jalen Milroe, and what he did, it was different than really anything he had before. It took him some time to get a feel for, how to utilize him properly, how to utilize guys like Kendrick Law properly. And so you'll see the same thing. And once that starts happening, I think you will get a lot more of that consistency and kind of that momentum building, finding your groove type of situations. But just up to this point, I haven't seen that a ton. The offensive line, for what it was asked to do as far as guys moving around, inexperience, all that stuff. It was, you had some really good spots. I mean, I thought Tyler Booker held up extremely well at left tackle. I thought Parker Brailsford played really, really well. I mean, he's been everything that Alabama could have possibly been hoping for at center. I thought he's had two really, really good games. I thought Jayden Roberts played fine. I thought Geno Vandermark was pretty solid in pass protection and left a lot to be desired, in my opinion, with the run blocking. But and then obviously everybody knows about Wick and Formby, and I think he's got to, he'll eventually get that fixed. But it will also be a competition with Elijah Pritchett once Proctor's back. But just considering the circumstances that they've had to deal with, I understand it, but it hadn't been great, and so I'd like to see a little bit more consistency there. But I will say, you saw Ryan Williams continue to kind of be, I wouldn't say wide receiver one, but he's kind of emerging as that guy. That's what we talked about preseason. We said if Alabama has an alpha number one receiver in that room, their best chance at it is Ryan Williams. It's just a matter of if he's going to be ready, and he's proving so far that he's ready. And so, Jeremy Bernard got a lot more usage, is kind of what I think will be an ideal number two when Ryan Williams does fully settle into that number one role. And then you got some complementary pieces. Haven't seen a lot of Kendrick Law. I thought that's been kind of surprising. But just, a lot going on with this offense, Mick.
Lance, in the comment section, I'm going to throw this up here. He says that the adjustments were a bit slow for him. No short passes. Formby needed Oots more. And they went to that 7-guy protection there for a while. But your thoughts about adjustments, and is that something you paid attention to when you were breaking the game tape down?
Yeah, I do think that there's more that they could be doing, situationally. And that this is what I question. You never know how much of it is Alabama's coaching staff just needs to do a better job of adjusting and just calling some of those things, or is it that they know something that we don't, which is maybe Jalen Milroe's not comfortable with some of that stuff, and they're trying to do things. Kalen DeBoer's brought up, hey, I've gotten with him. He kind of goes over with me what he feels comfortable doing, what he doesn't feel comfortable doing. So, DeBoer said that he's had those conversations and those discussions. So, this idea that the coaching staff needs to change stuff up and needs to do some of these different things, maybe that's the case, but it's also possible, not a guarantee, that, maybe some of those things that we're talking about them adjusting and doing is maybe not what Jalen Milroe wants to do or is comfortable doing. But I do agree that it would very much benefit the offense. I don't feel like, when the defense is attacking you like USF is, and they're just being super aggressive, the twists, the stunts, giving you different pictures, trying to confuse you. They're bringing a lot of pressure, a lot of 5 men with also a quarterback spy. So that's 6 guys that are kind of out of coverage. There's just certain things that you can be doing to exploit that and take advantage of it. And I just don't think Alabama was doing enough of it. So that needs to get fixed. But Oots certainly would have helped. I think Oots is just doing a phenomenal job blocking right now. I think he's kind of been an unsung hero. And I think it's mostly been, run blocking, but, in pass protection too. Obviously, if you can get a guy like that, a 270-pound tight end over there, I mean, that's almost a small tackle for some teams. That certainly would help Formby or Pritchett or whoever else is lining up at right tackle. So, I mean, yeah, I would think that's something they should at least flirt with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. And I asked Mike a question about the offensive line and their blocking, and then Milroe, kind of struggling, and whose fault it was, and he answered that. And it's another thing on the All-American report that you guys that are subscribers can listen to as well. But I mean, that to me seemed to be one of the stories of the game. Is just how Milroe was dealing with losing the plays that were positive because of the holdings, and then how they were just sending everybody at him, and he really just didn't have an answer, on some of those blitzes, and how, and like Lance said, it did feel like the adjustments were slow, and that's where he struggles, and that's where a lot of quarterbacks struggle. I mean, when you got a bunch of guys running at you, you either got to throw the ball away, make a play, or take a sack. And this, nobody wants the sack, I mean,
yeah,
you don't want to throw it away, but sometimes you have to.
That's right. And then he doesn't always have the opportunity to. And so when he's on the move and stuff, I thought he made a couple of really good throws on the move, one to Jeremy Bernard, dragging across to the right sideline. That's kind of what Jalen Milroe brings to the table. And Kalen DeBoer talked about that kind of stuff and brought up, hey, the more you can put that on tape, everybody knows you're capable of running. But if they know that they can't, we talked about that a little bit last week. I really would like to see a little bit more of that. But with Milroe, just he's got to get more comfortable in what he's doing. The coaching staff's got to get more comfortable with him, and I do think that that's going to come with time. But he's just at this point, it's just a matter of making sure he's comfortable in what he's doing, and that the chemistry that's being built with the receivers, the offensive line, he's got to be able to trust those guys, keep them protected. We talk about the snaps and how distracting that was last year for him. That's just another element where he had to, spend more of his time than he should have, making sure that he was getting the snap and it was in a location that he could get to. And that kind of threw off, that's mental capacity that's being focused on that rather than somewhere else. So, getting that fixed is great, but now maybe you've got some leakage issues at right tackle. That's certainly going to play into it. So how much is he having to think about that, and how much is that taken away from his ability to read the field? It was just probably a natural thing when you have a former 5-star tackle who was your starting left tackle all of last year, and then you think he's going to be available and healthy for the season, and right before the first game, he gets pulled out. It's like, well, now we're going to the backup. Elijah hadn't played over there really in a while. How is that going to look? So maybe he's thinking about that. That trust, had been built blindside with Caden Proctor. So, that's something else to keep in mind. And I'm not trying to make a bunch of excuses. I'm just saying these early season, types of things, typically you'll see them and they kind of end up resolving themselves over time. But I will say, more needs to be done because there is some improvement that needs to be made.
Love the super chats, and guys, I can tell you it goes a long way on the channel when you send out the super chat. So, Davis, we really appreciate it, man. Roll Tide, thank you. He says we'll see everything you want to see by the Georgia game. They're only trying to use what is necessary to win these first 3 games. Clint, you kind of feel like this could be the case, right?
Yes, I do. And to Wisconsin's credit, I kind of was already going to look at them, earlier this morning. I did a little bit yesterday evening as well. And, I think at times they were doing some pretty creative stuff, but, I think they're probably holding back a little bit too. So that's kind of everybody right now. Wisconsin hadn't really played 2 really good opponents at all the first couple of weeks. They actually have struggled. It's kind of like Alabama. So a lot of people, because they struggled, like I said yesterday, it was pointed out to me by my dad that the line came out, I think at 8.5 or 9 points, immediately jumped to like 15 or 15.5. That tells you, somebody thinks Alabama, that line was way off and they're trying to take advantage. But, I think over time, you start getting comfortable with the personnel that you have. That's what Kalen DeBoer, that's what Nick Sheridan, they're trying to do. That's what Jalen Milroe's trying to do with the new receivers and building chemistry with those guys. And just, so there's some natural, you want to keep things simple in the beginning and just kind of start getting a feel for what guys do well when there's so many new moving parts, makeshift offensive line, all that stuff. But the more information they get, the more they can start to build a game plan around, okay, this is what it is working. This is what's not working. We need to be able to add this element to the offense. So we need to work on this and get this implemented, all those things. So, yeah, I would say by Georgia, you got Wisconsin. No one needs to be writing them off. I understand that they've kind of struggled. I understand that Alabama, Auburn was a 2-touchdown favorite pretty much over Cal, and nobody was giving Cal a chance, and they beat Auburn. So I'm not saying that Alabama's Auburn, but I am saying I think, if I had to pick it between Wisconsin and Cal right now, I'd probably go Wisconsin. So, it's no one needs to overlook them, but if they can get through Wisconsin and they can get to that bye week, you've got one more game of experience plus a bye week to kind of focus back on yourself and maybe give yourself a little bit extra time to start looking ahead to Georgia. And then by the time the Bulldogs roll around, maybe you've got some of this stuff figured out.
Hey, again, thanks for the super chat. He's Clint Lamb, and I'm Mick Gillispie. It's always fun to talk to you guys here on Cover Crimson. Clint, anything else? Anything else today before we wrap it up on a Tuesday game week against Wisconsin? And I'm listening to you. We better be careful not to overlook Wisconsin on the road for Georgia, or it could be a bad result.
Yeah, that's the main thing, and I understand the concern because the more you watch this offense, the more you realize, okay, there's just someone's not comfortable somewhere, and they got to get comfortable real quick. Maybe a couple of guys, because the schedule, really from here going to Madison gets a lot more difficult than it's been. You'll pay for not having some of these things figured out. Really, people will say Georgia, it's from this point forward, period. So that's something to keep an eye on. But I will say, I love the pieces. I love Kalen DeBoer. I love the fact that he's got kind of that offensive mind. He's going to be able to, they're going to continue to have that brain trust offensively. Brian Ellis has got offensive coordinator experience. I think, Jamarcus Shepard and what he brings to the table certainly will have an input and will have some great ideas. So I really trust this coaching staff to get things figured out. And that's really where you have to put your trust. Before, it's like Nick Saban had kind of gained everybody's trust where, it was just trust, Saban. And now maybe with the head coach, it's not that Kalen DeBoer is not trustworthy. It's that he just hadn't established that kind of relationship with fans. But one thing I think fans, even though that relationship has also not been established with the entire staff, I do think you can put your trust in the staff that one of these guys, a couple of these guys are going to be able to come together, come up with something that works, and they're going to get this stuff figured out offensively. And really, that's what we've talked about. I do find it interesting that we thought this was really going to be like an offensively dominant team with a really strong complementary defense. Even though there's been some hiccups with the defense, it's been still kind of built through Nick Saban's image in the sense that defense is still really strong. The offense is kind of playing off of that a little bit. And there's still, things going on that side of the football that Alabama needs to get figured out. But once it clicks, you're getting really good defensive play. If you can get that Kalen DeBoer offense that we thought, kind of we're expecting to come from Washington, this can be a really dangerous football team. So I don't think anybody should be freaking out.
All right. Yeah. Well, great to talk to you guys today. Appreciate it. Make sure that you take advantage of the deal. Join us on Cover Crimson so you can get all the content, all Clint's breakdowns of the games, going through the snaps, the message board, the All-American report with Mike Johnson, that and more at Cover Crimson for $1 right now. Or the annual, and you get the T-shirt with that as well. We try to get those out fast to you. Also, Cover Crimson is brought to you by mybookie.ag. Use the promo code next round to double your initial deposit. That's right. MyBookie will double your initial deposit when you use the code next round. Kick off the football season with mybookie.ag and double your initial deposit using the code next round. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody, and we will talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, though, roll tide. And I'm mentioning there's a lot of good content on the channel as well, on the YouTube channel. So like and subscribe. Thumbs up.